A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I seek refuge with Allah from the accursed devil, and I begin in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Welcome to the presentation. Today I'll be talking about the 1974 Pakistan government event that declared Ahmadi Muslims as non-Muslims. It was a constitutional amendment, in fact. And this subject was recently touched off and exploited onto social media and to some extent onto commercial media as well by this gentleman over here, Mr. Hamza Ali Abbasi, who is a very popular Pakistani actor and director. And over here we have Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, who also needs no introduction. He brushed with the subject a couple of years ago, I believe, and wrote a blog about it. He did do takfir of Ahmadi Muslims. The blog was called Sticks and Bones May Break Our Bones, but Fitna Really Hurts. And while he didn't directly reference this event, he did mention that he had taken the opinion of scholars in Pakistan who told him that Ahmadis were non-Muslims, and that apparently was the basis of his takfir, according to what he wrote. This gentleman over here is Imran ibn Mansour, and I must admit that I had not heard of him or know too much about him before this recent debate in social media. And he actually made a video directed at Mr. Abbasi in an attempt to explain to him why Ahmadis are non-Muslims, and with specific reference to this event over here as basis and validation for that takfir. Now, despite how these three personalities are related to the subject, it is much bigger than that, and it's much, much bigger than them as well, as this event is cited and sometimes referenced by a lot of people, a lot of Orthodox Muslims, as basis and some sort of validation of why Ahmadis would be non-Muslims, because supposedly Pakistan is an Islamic government, and it took the opinion of scholars, and in fact it gained the consensus of scholars, and it brought this law into effect, and somehow that would validate the reasons, even though I would vehemently disagree with that theology or that psychology, because just because a government calls itself Islamic does not give them by any sense the right to go against the principles of Islam itself and the Quran and go and do something that's against Islam. Just because they call themselves Islamic, they absolutely have no right to overturn the laws of the Quran or the injunctions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and then go ahead and call it Islamic. But anyway, we'll go ahead and look at some of that detail in just a second. So firstly, some quick background on what happened recently. So Mr. Hamza Ali Abbasi began hosting a Ramadan transmission, basically just a TV broadcast in Pakistan. And during that, he asked the question if the state has any right to declare anyone's faith. He's actually broached the subject before as well. He's written about it. He's specifically written about the persecution of Ahmadi Muslims in the past as well. And this time it just got to be more mainstream, and whipped up a major social media and also to a great extent commercial media storm. And very unfortunately, there were death threats to Brother Hamza. One of these happened actually on national TV with a television show. PEMRA stepped in, which is the Pakistani, I believe, Electronic Media Broadcasting Regulatory Authority, and they shut down at least a couple of transmissions that I know of. One of them was Hamza Yusuf's transmission, which was banned, and also the other one where a death threat was made. And I've definitely noted a lot of death threats and wajib al-qatl or liable for death comments, remarks on social media against Ahmadi Muslims, and even with reference to Mr. Abbasi here. And then Mr. Mansour stepped in and made a video and certain comments in that video. There's quite a bit in that video, some other points as well, which I'm not going to be getting into. My focus is just going to be this point over here. But he does make a particular reference to this event and the scholars and what happened and the discussion or the debate or the theological implications that theological validations that were used in Pakistan in 1974 in the National Assembly, which ended up in a constitutional amendment. And first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at exactly what he said.
Not only do they have the right, but they're compelled to do so. They're compelled to implement Islam throughout the entire country in its entirety. But they are supposed to do this under the guidance of the scholars, of the ulama. Now, no doubt, if you look at the Pakistani government, for example, they are in no doubt, following and implementing Islam as they should be. And in not all issues do they take the guidance of the scholars. But in issues where they do follow the scholars and they take the guidance of the scholars, then we open-heartedly accept their implementation of those things. And the bill that was passed in 1972, the law that came out, 1974, in which the government officially, saw the Ahmadi community to be non-Muslims outside of Islam, disbelievers, it was done under the guidance of the ulama. In fact, the ulama were directly involved in drafting up the bill, in writing it up. So, no doubt they have the ability to do so. They're compelled to do so. They have to do so.
Okay, so we all heard Mr. Mansour say that the 1974 decision was taken under the guidance of the ulama, and as long as that happened, he wholeheartedly accepts it, and he preaches for others to do the same. So I'll be digging into some of the evidence that is contained in those proceedings. This is the official transcript of the government of Pakistan regarding those proceedings, and we'll be taking a look at that. And before that, a quick introduction. This is the Ahmadiyya delegation that went to address the proceedings. It was led by our Imam of the time, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih al-Salis, the third successor of the Messiah, Mirza Nasir Ahmed. May Allah be pleased with him, and he's flanked by the senior imams, scholars, delegates of the community, as well as Mirza Tahir Ahmed, his brother, and who would go on to become Khalifatul Masih al-Rabi, fourth successor of the Messiah. May Allah be pleased with all of them. And this over here is Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and he is accompanied by Mufti Mahmood, who was the chief cleric at the time, as they are entering the proceedings there. And this is the fundamental question that was taken up by the special session, which is, what is the status of the person or people who don't believe in the finality of prophethood of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him? The Sunni Orthodox Muslims take a literal view of the finality of the prophethood, meaning that no prophet can return in any shape or form after Muhammad, even though they themselves affirm that Jesus, prophet, is going to return and is going to dispense prophethood after Muhammad. But anyway, since they're in power, they're able to put up this question and use it as a means of excommunicating the Ahmadiyya community. So we'll go ahead and take a look at what actually happened and what's actually contained in this documentation. I'm going to begin by reviewing a document which did not constitute as part of the official transcripts of the proceedings, even though it should have been. This was the Ahmadiyya reply to that fundamental question that I just showed, and it's known as the Mahzarnama, or the memorandum. It was delivered in speech format by the Caliph, the Khalifa, on July 22nd and 23rd, and then delivered in book format to all the assembly members. It's a 200 pages each, delivered over the course of 2 days, and it has been expunged from the official assembly records and transcripts, even though it actually happened inside the parliamentary session and the assembly over a course of 2 full days. So this in itself is the first indication of how fair or just or Islamic the conduct of the assembly and the scholars was. And just a couple of snippets from inside the memorandum itself. There's quite a few different subjects discussed over here, and one of them is the theology of that question that is posed by the assembly, and this may give you some indication of why in fact it's been expunged. So here is a hadith, or a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, that had he Ibrahim, and this is not a reference to the Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him, but the son of Prophet Muhammad, who died in infancy, that had he lived, he certainly would have gone on and become a prophet. Here's another one. And this actually mentions that Abu Bakr, who was the first Khalifa after Muhammad, the first successor of Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the most superior in the Ummah unless a prophet appears. And then this third one says, this is by Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, the wife of the Prophet and a very revered personality in Islam. And Muslims say that we learn half our deen, half our religion from her. And this one says, O people, you may say that he, the Holy Prophet, was Khatabul Anbiya, meaning the seal of the prophets, but do not say that there will be no prophet after him. So these are just a few. There's quite a few more, and there's actually even many quotes by scholars of Islam and history saying that the prophethood, which Prophet Muhammad said is discontinued, he said, La Nabiya Ba'di, no prophets after me, refers to basically no new religious law or no new religion coming after him that will override or abrogate the religion of Islam or the law of the Quran. But it doesn't mean that a prophet, an Islamic prophet, somebody coming in with a function to revive the religion can come, which is in fact what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, himself has prophesied. So this is a view of that, and now we'll get into the actual official transcripts themselves. And first of all, I'll be looking to provide proof of the memorandum, since it's not in the copy of the memorandum is not in the official transcripts. There are references to it in the transcript, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that. And this is the very first one over here by Maulana Zafar Ansari, and he says, जनाब वाला, मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि ये तहरीरी बयान देने का जो सिलसिला इन्होंने शुरू किया है, इसकी हौसला अफजाई की जाए। काफ़ी तवील बयान वो अपने महजरनामा में दे चुके हैं. So he's saying that, addressing the chairman, sir, I would like to say that the process of detailed explanation that they're conducting should be discouraged. They have already given a detailed response in their memorandum. And now let's take a look at the just to have validation and proof that the fundamental question is what I put up in the previous slide. And over here we have Muhammad Sardar Khan, I believe he was one of the members of the National Assembly, saying that I want to bring it to the attention, to the notice of this honorable house, that the main question, I should say, before the special committee or the assembly as to what is the status of a person who doesn't believe in the finality of the prophethood, that is the question, or that point, it is still untouched. So he's expressing some concern over here that, you know, we've been in the assembly and we've been discussing and debating this issue for quite some time, and yet that very fundamental question that we're here to discuss and talk about and ask and provide the and give the Ahmadiyya community an opportunity to respond to it, it still hasn't come up. And the chairman replies, it'll come up, it will be taken up. So let's see what happens. Next piece of evidence, National Assembly member complains that the Ahmadiyya arguments not rebutted. So now we are a couple of weeks out, 2nd of September 1974. I believe the previous slide was, it was 7th of August. So yes, definitely a couple of weeks out. And we have a member of National Assembly, Sardar Inayat Khan Abbasi, who makes the following remarks. Let's pay close attention to this. The response, the memorandum of the Ahmadiyya community that they brought before this house, it is a dark spot on our scholars. And that's the word he uses over here. Ulema, हमारे उलेमा इकराम पर बहुत बड़ा धब्बा है. It's a dark spot on our scholars. It's a great charge on them. I believe our scholars should face the public and answer these charges. I have read Mufti Sahib's answer, that's Mufti Mahmud, in the Tawil dictionary where he accumulated his knowledge. I read it all, but not for one instance have their charges been refuted. God knows if they're true or false. If they're false, I'll accept it. But you have not provided any argument. So I don't think I need to add anything else to that. I think Mr. Sardar Inayat Khan Abbasi has adequately stated what needed to be stated as far as what actually happened in the assembly. And now, further affirmation of the arguments of the Ahmadiyya community not being refuted. And this is by Colonel Habib Ahmed, who I believe was another member of the National Assembly. And after everything is said and done, this is now again on the 2nd of September. That's the reference. And it's towards the closing sessions of the these parliamentary proceedings. And obviously, very understandably, he's very worried, and he wants to say that all the speeches and all the arguments that happened here will now come out in the form of books, and there'll be immense propaganda, and future generations will read about this event. This was a great charge on our scholar, the ulema, the guidance of the ulema, but none of them was able to rise up to them, to the Ahmadiyya. And you know, he goes on to say some further stuff over here, and then the chairman basically intercedes with the point of order, which in parliamentary speak is another way of saying that you need to stop speaking now. So I hope one day a generation of Pakistanis will wake up to this fraud, travesty that took place in the name of Islam by the scholars, by the ulema, and that they will set the record straight, and they will want to take their country and nation back. The current generation may be too indoctrinated in the hate and the falsehood that has been peddled by the ulema for decades and decades now, almost 100 years I would say, against the Ahmadiyya community. But hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully, you know, maybe that can happen much sooner than some future generation doing this. Okay, one more piece of reference from the transcripts. And this, I would say, would be fairly conclusive and very reflective of the actual state of affairs that occurred during the parliamentary session. So here the chairman of the session is addressing the ulema and request those members that we should not cut a sorry figure. So we, that's the the delegation that's bringing the charges, before the members of the delegation. That's the Ahmadiyya delegation. So we should not cut a sorry figure in front of them. Yes, sure, that's deeply shocking. And then he also asks them that they should not be running away or absconding from the proceedings, and they need to at least stay there up to 6 o'clock. I mean, this is obviously a very big issue. You're excommunicating an entire community. You're doing it in the name of Islam. It's very sensitive. You'll be answerable to God for these acts. And the last thing they should be doing is just trying to run out of there and not having to stand there and face questions or face the arguments or the rebuttals of the Ahmadiyya community. And then he tells them that all kinds of excuses that are coming up for not being able to provide answers, like the change of edition or the print in Rabba or Qadian, is not an excuse. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep looking at our examination of the proceedings of these parliamentary affairs, but we'll do it from a slightly different angle. And these, I'm going to present a couple of testimonials of some very prominent politicians who were around at the time. These would be very familiar faces to Pakistanis or anybody who's familiar with Pakistani history. This is Abdul Hafiz Pirzada, who was the Minister of Law, Justice and Parliamentary Affairs in 1974. And this over here is Dr. Mubashir Hassan, who's the co-founder of the Pakistan People's Party and a close aide of Prime Minister Bhutto in 1974. And he was also co-founder of the Pakistan People's Party and was a Prime Minister of that party. So they've both given interviews regarding this event. And let's go ahead and listen to what they have to say.
कथा कलामी माफ और सेक्युलर पार्टी थी, तो फिर आपने वो जो 74 में कानून लेके आए अहमदियों के खिलाफ, तो वो फिर क्या उसका क्या जरूरत थी उसकी?
कॉम्प्रोमाइज था,
कॉम्प्रोमाइज सियासी कॉम्प्रोमाइज मगर कथा
डॉक्टर साहब?
जब ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन मंजूर हुआ 73 का, अहमदियों को अक़लियत करार देने का फैसला यानी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में आपने बाद में अमेंड करके अमेंडमेंट हुई, तो ये सियासी फैसला था भुट्टो साहब?
बिल्कुल सियासी फैसला था।
इसका मतलब ये है कि वो फिर अपनी यानी पावर पॉलिटिक्स में कंप्रोमाइजेस भुट्टो साहब के फिर मौजूद हैं।
बहुत ज़बरदस्त। आप पूछ रहे हैं कि ये क्यों हुआ? ये सऊदी अरब के प्रेशर से हुआ।
कोई आइन के हक में वोट डालने के लिए कोई लेन देन, कोई सौदेबाजी?
अरे बहुत पैसे लिए हैं इन लोगों ने।
कोई वाक़या तो बताइए कि 73 को दिलचस्प लेन देन आपको याद रह गया हो।
अरे भाई, एक मौलवी था बलोचिस्तान का, वो वोट नहीं देता था। भुट्टो साहब को कहा गया कि वो पैसे लेके वोट देता है। मैंने कहा अच्छा, मौलाना है, ये है, वो है, इलेक्ट हुआ है, हमारे कैंडिडेट को उसने शिकस्त दी है जी। तो उन्होंने कहा मैं दूंगा पैसे इसे, बुलाओ उसे मेरे सामने। वो आया, उसने कहा जनाब मुझे इतने पैसे दो तो मैं वोट दे दूंगा। इन्होंने पैसे अपने पास रखे हुए थे, नोटों के बंडल और कुछ अलग अलग भी, वो यूं फेंक दिए फर्श पे। अच्छा लो उठाओ। अब वो बेचारा झुक के घुटनों के बल इधर उधर कालीन कुछ दूर भी फेंके। जलील किया करना मकसद था ना, और वो जलील होने को तैयार। But in issues where they do follow the scholars and they take the guidance of the scholars, then we open-heartedly accept the implementation of those things. And the bill that was passed in 1972, the law that came out, 1974, in which the government officially, saw the Ahmadi community to be non-Muslims outside of Islam, disbelievers, it was done under the guidance of the ulama.
I think that may have been as painful to watch as it still is for me. I've watched it a number of times and still manages to inflict some level of pain. A few more points over here. In the aftermath of this event, I'm going to talk briefly about Ordinance XX, which came into effect in 1984, I believe, by General Ziaul Haq, who was one of the dictators who, in fact, the one who immediately succeeded Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was the presiding Prime Minister in 1974. And in fact, the persecution just took a whole other level after Pakistan declaring Ahmadis as non-Muslims and amending its constitution thereof. They decided it wasn't enough. It wasn't doing enough to impede the spread of the Ahmadiyya movement, and people were still regarding them as Muslim, despite what the government said. So they felt that they had to go ahead and induct a set of laws where they want to forcibly remove emblems of Islamic practices from Ahmadi Muslims. And if Ahmadi Muslims would then be seen either uttering the Islamic Declaration of Faith, Salam, which simply means peace, reciting the Holy Quran, praying in an Islamic manner, building a mosque or anything like that, they could actually go to jail. You go to jail for 3 years just for uttering Salam, and I think this might be even up to 6 years for found reciting the Quran, and many Ahmadis have fallen prey to this stuff. And then for the broader public, the broader society, religious clerics, they continue to call for social boycott of Ahmadi Muslims. They're encouraged that Ahmadis are apostates and therefore they're wajib al-qatl, they're liable for death. That's a whole other topic in Islamic theology, which is very erroneously misunderstood and implemented in some Muslim countries today. Anyway, maybe that's a subject or topic for another presentation on the discussion on a different day. And these kind of sentiments and hatred and indoctrination is echoed by the mainstream society, by a very large swath of people in society, and then it forms the roots of extremism, and it leads to these very violent movements like Daesh or ISIS. And if you look at some of the social media posts that have come in the aftermath of this, especially this Hamza Ali Abbasi instigation of this discussion, a lot of them say that they believe that apostasy is liable for death, and then one said that if Pakistan was a true Islamic state, all the Ahmadis would have been put to death, and they should consider themselves lucky that it's not. And how is that different from Daesh? How is that different from what ISIS is doing to the Okay, so there is actually some good news. A lot of this stuff is actually given in prophecy by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about scholars, and it's actually historically quite consistent. Has happened in religions, in Christianity and Judaism, and I would think in all other religions. And in this particular prophecy, he says that in the days of mischievous turbulence, people will go to their ulema, the scholars, for advice and guidance. And isn't that what we've just seen happen? And they will find them to be the like of monkeys and swine. So he's using some very strong words over here in terms of what they will be capable of and the kind of frauds they will perpetrate. Here's another one, and this one, I won't read it verbatim, but just this part over here is very telling. Again, their ulema, that's the word that he used, will be the worst kind of creatures under the canopy or the heaven. And the mischievous disorder, or the fitna, the word that is used, fitna, which is the word that Sheikh Hamza Yusuf used in his blog, that fitna hurts. And yes, Sheikh Hamza, it really hurts. And I hope this message reaches you and that you're able to see who the real fitna is in the situation, and that it'll, the fitna will take birth from the ulema, and then it will kind of fall upon them themselves. And this kind of thing, like I said, is historically consistent. It's happened many times before in other religions too. And there's for example, a verse in the Bible from Mark chapter 12, verse 38 to 40, which says that beware of the scribes who like to go about in long robes and like to have salutations in the marketplace and the best seats in the synagogues and the place of honor in the feast, who devour the widows' houses and for a pretense make long prayers. And there's many verses in the Quran about how many of the Jewish scholars changed words in the Torah to mislead people. So this kind of thing has happened, and was also predicted to happen again. And relevant to this point and the times that we're living in, this, what I'm about to share, has become my absolute favorite Shakespearean quote. It's from Richard III. Let's take a look at that.
Evie!
Thus I clothe my naked villainy with old odd ends, stolen forth from Holy Writ, and seem a saint when most I play the devil.
Please, have mercy.
Oh, not tonight, Bishop.
Okay, we're almost at the end of the presentation over here. I do appreciate everybody's patience. So, just real quick, I wanted to cover this. What really was the objective behind this 1974 constitutional amendment in Pakistan and the subsequent events, and obviously the horrific repercussions that we've seen in many Muslim countries in terms of extremist ideology and violence? So these people, that's the Pakistani consortium, politicians and the ulema, and this Saudi Wahhabi consortium, which was installed there in the Hijaz, which was known as the Hijaz, and then became Saudi Arabia right after the New World Order was set up in the aftermath of the First World War. What is their real objective in doing this? I mean, people who are familiar with anti-Ahmadiyya activism would know that a lot of the times were cast as ridiculous, holding ridiculous beliefs, that there isn't even an inkling of credibility in entertaining the thought that a prophet can follow the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, even within the Islamic tradition and law, and that this is just absolute nonsense and just worthy of instant rejection. So why, if that really is the case, why would they go to such lengths and do all this? So for people who are looking at this, observing this from more of a neutral standpoint, a neutral mentality, here's some food for thought. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did prophesize that, like I've shared some prophecies of his in previous slides, that, things are going to happen, bad things in his following, just like previous religions eventually fell into corruption. And this one's going to break up into 73 sects, and only one will be on the right path. And in fact, right following this event in Pakistan in 1974, one of the newspapers over there called Nawai Waqt published a headline, and within that they said that all the 72 sects of Islam which were represented in the assembly, or maybe even outside the assembly, everyone is in agreement with this decision. Okay, so maybe certainly we think that this is a great fulfillment of that prophecy, and others are obviously free to make their own assessment and take their own decision. One thing is for sure, that if Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad al-Islam is the Messiah and the Mahdi, as was prophesied by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then surely all these efforts are going to come to naught. And another important thing is that Allah has decree, and we can look at that criteria from the Holy Quran, that it says that my messengers will prevail, that there is no effort by any power on earth that will be able to stop that the mission, and my divine decree, which is issued out of the heavens, and it's issued by the creators of the heavens and the earth himself. So that obviously will stand the test of time and truth. So just wanted to share some a couple more clips with you in terms of that.
And in this time and age, brothers, these Qadianis, as we have mentioned many times, most of them come from India, Pakistan, but it's no longer an Indian-Pakistani fitna, my dear brothers. It is spread. One of our Somali brothers came up to me a few months ago, and he said, brother, he was brother, believe me, he was breathing heavy and as though very anxious. He said, brother, astaghfirullah, one of the senior Qadianis in the modern masjid is Somali, brother. Astaghfirullah. As the elder was saying, one of the biggest Qadiani annual gatherings outside India is in Nigeria. Millions of Qadianis in the west of Africa, and in East Africa, in other parts of Africa, and a regular Qadiani annual gathering takes place in Palestine. And in fact, one of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani's loyal, faithful servant, generation after generation, was a family of Palestinians. Their case, but now they've spread their wings all over. They came and settled in England. Our ulama came from there, and Allahu Akbar, they pursued them. They started doing international Khatam-e-Nubuwwat conference on a global level, where they invited ulama from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, from different parts of the world, Salafi scholars, Hanafi scholars, this is a united front. And just to make you aware of how dangerous this fitna is, unfortunately we've got our own problems. People are saying, oh, Salafi, Hanafi, Shafi and all this. But you can say in this issue at least, the whole ummah has been united for at least 30-40 years. Salafis, Hanafis, Malikis, Shafis, Deobandi, Brelwi, Al-Hadith, even Shias came on board and on this platform to refute the Qadianis, but still Qadianis are spreading. With the united Muslim global stand against Qadianis, but still Qadianis are spreading. With the united Muslim global stand against Qadianis, but still Qadianis are spreading.
Islam-Ahmadiyya, Islam-Ahmadiyya, Sonnen- und Mondfinsternis als Zeichen für den Imam Mahdi.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله رب إني ظلمت نفسي واعترفت بذنبي فاغفر لي ذنوبي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت
So I'd like to end on a positive note here and acknowledge the many hundreds, if not thousands, of non-Ahmadi Pakistanis who have stood up for Ahmadiyya rights, and they stand to lose much, even up to their lives. And these people are not Ahmadis, and yet they're risking their lives pretty much to stand up for what is right. And there are people from all walks of life, from entertainers to journalists to activists. I'm just using a very limited collage over here, but there are actually many more. Pakistan is a country that is very near and dear to my heart, and I pray for it, and I wish it all the best for the future. As for this gentleman here, I don't really mean to put him on the spot. I think he right now represents a much bigger, much wider problem than just himself. Obviously, much bigger than that. I should be giving him the benefit of the doubt that what he did, what he said, was out of genuine ignorance. He may have just heard it in passing, or not. That there were some scholars there at the time, and they were supposedly Muslim scholars, and they were there for a more genuine purpose, and supposedly what they did was, in his mind, was right. But his true test as a Muslim, whatever he is, if he's a preacher or if he's an imam or whatever, his title means nothing, his beard means nothing, his no matter, if he's a hafiz or if he recites many verses of the Quran, all that is not really going to amount to much unless we see how he responds to this event, and how he comes out and at least acknowledges the information that's been sent his way. He does istighfar, and he engages us in dialogue. And it's moral virtue that once you go or before you go and make an allegation or an accusation against someone, that you check in with them, or you get their response, or you get their point of view. I mean, that would be a very basic Islamic thing to do, and a human thing to do. Well, thank you very much for watching the presentation. Check out the channel. There's one other video on there, and there's more on the way. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact me at this email address. وآخر الدعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.